Should I read the question or do you want to read the question?
I'll read the questions for you.
Okay, just the first one.
Yep. So during this pandemic, people seem to be struggling with finding the joy while staying at home. What are some activities or some self-care methods that you would recommend while following the stay-at-home order?
Well, first I'd like to say I'm not surprised. I've told audiences all over the world that I think no more than 10% live day-to-day happiness. I think our global society, to tell you the truth, thrives a little on misery. That no, I haven't found a school that teaches joy. And I'm sitting here often, you know, my interviews with patients, I've been a doctor 50 years, were 3 or 4 hours long, and I found so few that were loving life, that for most, whether they were rich or poor, were struggling. And almost as if struggling was a badge to wear and to delight in, because there's so much more language about depression, depression, depression than there is about yay life, yay life. In fact, I found very few adults that actually, unless I pumped them up, would yay life. No matter what their health was like or their wealth was like, this was, and it's also 20th century literature. A lot of it is that way. So who can be so, you know, it's so interesting. People are struggling at home where there's that phrase, home is where the heart is. Home is your, you know, for all other animals, home is their safety place. Whether you live in a hole underground or in a nest in a tree, that home has that connotation of, home, where now, you know, I think a lot of people have 2 jobs to stay away from home, and that they don't really know that the home that they celebrate or complain about is the home they made. If you're complaining about it, it's because you've made a home to complain about. It's also often associated with a partner, and very few partnerships are blissful. No school, K through 12 in the world, teaches loving 1 hour. And so, in a way, the virus is a golden opportunity to take a close look at yourself and go, you know, I'm going to clean up my home and have it be a sanctuary, a place of peace I go to, whether it's a small 1-room crowded apartment, a shack, or a giant palace, because both are unhappy. So, what activities could you recommend? Try waking up. I say, if you have food and a friend, what are you about? And so, when you have your health, when you have friends, you're a rich person. I don't think mental illness is a medical thing, and that most of the drugs for mental illness are dangerous, and people often use them to try to kill themselves. Where I think mental illness is a pharmaceutical company diagnosis, that, quote, mental illness is a reflection of a loss of tribal life, unconnected to nature and unconnected to the arts. Sorry for the long answer.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
So when you're home, climb a tree. When you're home, go for a walk and hold hands with your sweetheart. If you have a sweetheart, actually let them be a sweetheart. Let me tell you this, by being at home in 30 years with my beloved Susan, it's the first time I've had more than 2 weeks with her. Really? And I'm on the 13th week, and wow, why should I ever go back to work? And one can have that kind of relationship. It isn't special to me. It's effort on both of our parts because we like that kind of relationship. So there you have it, the first question.
That was beautiful.
And who is this for?
This is for Jet 24 Action News.
Is that a TV show?
Yep, it's a TV station in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Okay, we don't have a TV or a newspaper.
Mm-hmm. I will definitely email you this after we finish. So.
Okay, so question number 2. You have said before that you choose not to have bad days. This has been your philosophy since you were 18. Could you explain the mindset? Okay, I was born in 1945 into a military family. So in the 40s, 3 years in Japan. In the 50s, from 54 to 61, I was in Kaiserslautern, Germany on a largest military base outside of the US. And I was a weird nerd, dweeb, dork, sissy boy. I was not a manly man. In fact, I was frightened of manly men and was much more feminized. And so I was bullied somewhat, not vastly, but I was one of the weird kids. And then my father died in 1961, and we moved back to the United States, to the Virginia, my mother's heritage, and my life changed forever in a public park at a public drinking fountain where the sign said whites only. I wept and wept and wept. I realized my country was fake and religion was fake, and a person could walk by that sign and not tear it down. That there was hatred for color. Hatred for color. It's like hatred for gender. It eliminates a lot of possible friends and is stupid. It shows absolute zero intelligence. Because once you have no intelligence, you can hate anything or before anything, hence the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, so there I was freaking out, and my mom gave me everything about me I love, but she was not an activist. So I couldn't go to her for this hatred. She wasn't a hater, she just didn't understand why it was bothering me. And so 3 times at 17, I was a patient on a mental hospital ward, depressed, given pills. I hated what their effect was on my imagination, and it certainly didn't help me. Then, at 18, I was present in DC for Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, and I changed instantly. This is when I found out my mother gave me self-esteem. It wasn't that clear to me, but when I asked myself, okay, stupid, you don't kill yourself, you make a revolution of nonviolence. So what was that revolution to me? And how can I be effective? And the first decision I made was, well, if I don't have any bad days, I can be an effective activist every day. So I decided at 18 to never have another bad day. And again, that's when I found out that my mother made me a person who could make that decision. And if I focused and looked at what I was doing and how I was responding using my intelligence, I could be exactly who I decided to be. So I decided to be 6 qualities: happy, funny, loving, cooperative, creative, and thoughtful, because golly, does that make me dangerous to hating? Okay.
That was beautiful.
Can I go on to number 3?
Most definitely.
Some people are increasing their reading during this pandemic. Do you have any recommendations? You know, my library is about 40,000 books, each one gotten to make me more dangerous. No John Grisham, no Danielle Steele. Sorry, I'm not looking for TV or filler. We don't have a TV. I'm looking to expand myself, which is why I know 4 hours of poetry by heart. Okay? And still as a geezer, I know it. And so, a couple of poets I would instantly recommend is Walt Whitman, another nut of the 19th century, and another nut of the 19th century, Emily Dickinson, and let's throw in E.E. Cummings for beginners there. And then, you know, I'm a kind of person that likes the complete works of people. So I've read all of Dickens, all of Dostoevsky, and all of so many of the great writers of the 19th and 20th century. And so usually when I give out recommended books, I say, send me 10 books that have mattered to you. I will most likely know them and then recommend books in relationship to the books you are liking to get you into great readership. You can go to the Nobel Prize winners in literature and find that they're each magnificent. Every country has magnificent writers, and many of them are very well translated into English, thanks to both England and the United States. And yeah, Shakespeare, whoa, look out. So, I mean, when you think about books to read, you've got literature, poetry, drama, and fiction. You've got spiritual readership to do. I think history to understand who we are, and you don't have to choose one point of view. You can get conflicting points of view and notice you have a brain to look closely at them and not be frightened for their influence because you are influencing you. So that's really what I can say about books. But I did mention a few names.
Most definitely.
And go there, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, number 4, certainly you are building a hospital. The hospital is a bit different than others in many ways. Could you explain what you envision? I entered medical school in 1967 to use it as a vehicle for social change. And within a month, I saw nothing right. 95% of my professors were rude and arrogant men. There were very few women at that time. 8 women in my class of 130. That what we were taught was their idea of what we should know. Not one lecture on health. 4 years of medical school, no lectures on diet, exercise, thinking, spirit, joy. Any of these things were left out, which is what health, it was called a healthcare system, but no lectures on health and no lectures on care. It was disease, a bunch of disease information that was biblical from an allopathic sense, but ignored all of the other healing arts and their points of view of what was healthcare delivery. So I was amazed. At that time, acupuncture was against the law, homeopathy was against the law, Ayurvedic, anthroposophic, they laughed at, quote, faith healing. And I found it at this point in the hand that I could rub that point on both sides and get rid of 80% of the headaches that came to me. I'm rubbing the hand. What kind of crazy thing is that? But it's thousands of years old. And interestingly enough, homeopathy, where less is more. So the weaker the homeopathic medication, the stronger the effect. Of course, that's got to be a bunch of rah, 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 rah. And chiropractic, that was legal at the time, but it was always a lesser healing art. Things have changed somewhat since then, and they've opened the door to the other kinds of healing arts. So, Okay, I was taught to be a doctor in 7.8 minutes. No one, even the dullest person, is that dull. So I developed an interview. I liked 3 to 4 hours as a family doctor, and I asked a lot of questions. I like to go to the person's home. I like to have dinner at their home to watch how the family interacts, because that's going to affect your health dramatically. And so, yeah, it was actually, I found that the practice of medicine was fun when you added care. My longest hug was 12 hours. And what I did with my own mental health influenced me to not give psychiatric diagnoses or medications to people. I could tell them that they exist if they went to other doctors for them, but that I did not like them. I was much more interested in a person making their mental health, and would show them, since I was doing it communally as a tribe and with nature and with the arts, I would point out, you know, it looks like you're really happy right now. That's without medication. So I would trick them and then point out to them that in the context of friends, in a context of nature and the arts, they could enjoy themselves. So turn off your TV, that's right, go outside, climb a tree, and have a circle of friends. And it, you know, the cost of medical care, it's now the #1 reason you lose your home in 70% of bankruptcies in the US. So what the hell does the doctor think they've done for the patient? They've bankrupted them. And so when I was a nerd, I didn't have to study much in medical school. So I spent a lot of the time studying people, studying the profession, with the idea that when I graduated, I would have a model addressing the problems of healthcare delivery. So the model was where all the permanent staff lived together as a communal eco-village, although that term was not used in 1971. It's now used. And that everyone from the surgeon to the cleaning person would make the same salary. So there would be no hierarchy, because hierarchy sucks. I'm the boss, do what I say. Doesn't work for me. It's not an intelligent direction for advice. So everyone makes the same salary. Ideally, go to the poorest state to have room for patients. Yes, I want to build a 40-bed primary care hospital, but have 40 beds for guests that could be string quartets, friends, curious people, people who wanted to learn. And then with my partner, Susan, who has a school for designing a society, I wanted to build a teaching center, not just to teach what we're doing, but anyone who lives there can say, can we have a week on Virginia Woolf? You know, I'd like a week on cell migration. So whatever people wanted to learn, we could invite in teachers who would love to come there and have that as a force. And also, since I mentioned that the design for mental health is tribe, nature, and the arts, I wanted us to be an artist colony with theater going on, with an art gallery, with great literature going on and teaching of those things, etc. And artistic living artistically. And this model eliminates 90% of the cost of care. Have I gone on too long for you?
No, not at all. Not at all. That was a great method. I am going to wrap up this interview with one final question, if you don't mind me asking. So for all the medical workers out there today, a lot of them seem to be struggling with the new coronavirus going out. What's your advice? What inspires you to keep striving to serve others? Like, what would you tell them in order to keep doing what they're doing?
Well, you asked several questions there. I mean, first, I want to make it clear, I make me.
Mhm.
It's just an option, okay? Very few people decide to do it. But I decided at 18 to be those 6 qualities all the time. So I don't have other qualities fighting for a position. I have myself working on myself to be those qualities. And so what's very interesting about this time is that there's probably, in my lifetime, never been as much positive feedback to the medical community from the lay community. Thank you for working so hard to take care of us. And there have been many demonstrations of that and many showings of that. And so one thing I'd recommend to caregivers who are burnt out or stressed in this time is hear it. Hear for the first time your greater community applauding you for your dedication to care, for your working among the sick, because this is what we doctors have done. A lot of my classmates were in Vietnam. They were working in a war zone, not with any pistols, but to care for the wounded in very dangerous situations. And yes, if I were the media, I would focus on the doctors and nurses who are thrilled and honored to serve their citizens as they really haven't acted like for decades as they have for this COVID virus. And yes, it is frontline, and yes, some of them will get the COVID and some of them will not survive the COVID. This is historically true for our profession. If you were dealing with other plagues in history, that Susan wrote a great paper redesigning the character of the care actor. It is really important to be a giving caregiver, but it is bi-directional. When you are caring for someone, you are free to pick up their loving you if you want to. It's not taught. It's taught like care is one direction. It goes out, it cares for people, and then you get paid. But I think there are a lot of workers for this COVID experience who are getting paid in care. Because same salary, what's different is they are putting themselves on the line. And wow, they just saw a TV show where huge numbers of people were thanking them for what they're doing, which wasn't happening before. Do you remember it happening before?
Not in my life.
You've seen it happen now in many cases. And so healthcare professionals, instead of burning out or suffering from all of this stuff, go, yeah, thanks for your good feelings. It is great to care. Let the world know that caring is a high, which is what I hope I've been letting people know in all of this transaction.
All right, that was beautiful. That brought a tear to my eye. So
you can tell people that I have 2 books.
Mm-hmm.
Here is the truest thing to tell people. I'm in the 50th year of a project that I thought would take 4. We've eliminated 90% of the cost of care. The movie promised to build our hospital and gave me nothing. And 90% of the promises people have made to me economically didn't happen. I need funding to build this hospital, but most of the funding to date has come from me working. I haven't worked since March 4th because my work was traveling the world, lecturing and performing. And I can't do that. Let me look straight at people watching me. I need your help. It is irresponsible that this hospital has not been built. So whether you can make a large donation or a $5 one, it gets us closer to being built, to showing. Because I promise you, because of the fame from the film, the instant we're built, the medical world will come to our door to see how it is working. And this is what, I get a huge amount of praise. What I need are funds to build the hospital. The praise is nice for me and our team, but building the hospital is nice for the planet, to make medicine a service and not big business. Whoopee.
All right. Thank you so very much for taking the time today. We truly appreciate it. I mean, you're a personal hero of mine. I mean, just from the amount of letters that you've sent me, and I can't wait for the world to hear your message.
And will they hear a massively edited version, or will they hear it as spoken?
That depends, but they'll hear most of it. They will hear most of it as spoken. They will hear.
Please allow them, if they get an edited version, to say, go here and hear the full thing.
Yes.
Thank you.
All righty. That was Patch Adams. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you're staying safe, and I hope you continue to find the joy as you always do.
Anyone can do it.
And thank you so much. I appreciate this.
Whoopee.
Right.
Well, I don't know how to mute myself. Can you mute me?
Yep. All righty. You have a great day.